All right, good people, good people. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Basketball Society podcast, the first live stream here on the channel for the Basketball Society podcast. We're usually doing live streams for our women's basketball podcast, the Protect Our Queens podcast. But we're going to start doing some more live hits here on this show. My name is Martin. If you are new to the show and to the channel and to the podcast, welcome. Good to have you here. I'm just going to give some thoughts about a game 7 that we have tonight in the NBA finals. Want to talk about some of the dynamics of obviously the series and the game tonight. I don't necessarily have a prediction or a feeling. I do have a feeling, but not necessarily a prediction. But I do want to talk about, and I'm going to start with just like the most fascinating thing about this finals and why whoever wins really dictates a style of play and validates a style of play with what we've seen through these playoffs and in the finals with the Pacers and the Thunder. I think it's going to be really interesting to see which style wins out, because I think that's going to say a lot about just style and brand of basketball right now. So going to get into that in a minute, but I do also want to react quickly and just give a few minutes of my initial reaction to the news of Kevin Durant being traded officially to the Houston Rockets. I want to give just a quick initial take on KD to Houston. And I want to play a clip from the show. This was a few months ago when I had my friend, NBA insider Brandon Scoop B. Robinson on the show. We talked about KD, and he had reporting on a couple of teams that would be interested in going after KD, but he definitely said that Houston was going to be and has been aggressive. Like he literally called them a shark in the water in going after KD. And it's crazy how on the last day of the NBA season, we get the KD trade. And now we know that he'll be going to Houston. So just a quick clip here from Scoop B when he was on the show, and he talked about Houston being interested in Kevin Durant.
I know that the Houston Rockets have been a shark in the water, trying to find a way to get Kevin Durant, and of course he has a relationship with both head coach Ime Udoka during their days working together in Brooklyn, and of course Royal Ivey being an assistant coach with the Houston Rockets as well. He's actually Kevin Durant's best friend. He was in Royal Ivey's wedding, and he is Royal Ivey's daughter's godfather. So there's relationship there. Them both coming from Texas, being Longhorns, and all of that stuff. So it's very fluid. There's no conversation obviously right now. The season is still going on, but these are conversations that will linger into the off season.
All right. So if you're just joining in, welcome. I'm going to talk in a few minutes, just some initial takes and thoughts on the NBA Finals and Game 7 tonight, the Pacers and the Thunder. Just going to get off a couple of things on my mind, takeaways and reactions, and a feeling about what may happen in Game 7. But if you're just joining, feel free to tap in the comments and give your thoughts on what we're talking about. But I wanted to react to this. If you haven't seen yet, Kevin Durant is officially being traded to the Houston Rockets by Phoenix. Houston gave up, I think I saw it's Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. Those are the only two players. And then a bunch of picks. I think I saw 4 or 5 second-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. I think those are the only two players, Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. So I played the clip from Scoop B. He was on the show a few months ago talking about the connections that KD has with the coaching staff, Royal Ivey, Ime Udoka in Houston, and how they were looking to acquire Kevin Durant, how this was on their radar, and they made it happen on the last day of the season. So I guess this is my initial take and feeling on KD in Houston. For one, I've been reminding people how where KD, LeBron, and Steph are right now in their careers is very challenging to for a fan base and probably even for a front office to like figure out what do we really do with them right now? Because KD, Steph, and LeBron, as we know, are past their prime. They're in the last parts of their careers, but each of them is still playing elite basketball. So Golden State went and got Jimmy Butler this year because they're like, hey, Steph is still Steph. We've still got something here. We've got Steph and Draymond. Clay is out, but like we still need to maximize Steph. You look at LeBron with the Lakers, they brought in, they came up on Luka. So the point is, when you have these superstars who are aging, but still playing at an elite level, like Kevin Durant, KD is still playing at an elite level, not prime level, but still elite basketball. I just feel like that's challenging to think about it just makes it even more important to figure out like what kind of situation makes sense around them in this parts of their career when they're still this good. Can they can all still contribute to winning basketball, but they may not be in a position to lead a team to a championship by themselves, which, I mean, most people don't do that anyway. Everyone needs help, right? So it's just an interesting thing to think about. So when I think about KD in Houston, the number one thing that makes me encouraged about KD in Houston and what makes me think it can work and what makes me think it can be successful, not just work, but be successful, be a legit contender in the West, is Ime Udoka. I feel like Ime Udoka's coaching style and his culture that he has already started to set in with Houston is going to really help Kevin Durant, because this is a culture of, I mean, I even think about the fact that Ime coached probably the best series we've seen against Kevin Durant in that Boston and Brooklyn series. Even though most of the games were close, I had never seen Kevin Durant look that challenged on the basketball court. The way Boston defended him, and that was Ime Udoka's Boston team that went to the finals and lost to Golden State in 2022. But I mean, they made KD and Kyrie look, I don't want to say bad, but they looked challenged. They looked out of sorts, especially KD. And I just think Ime Udoka gives KD a chance to be part of a culture that is kind of set in something that is not necessarily his vibe. Like Ime Udoka's about toughness, grit, and that's good for KD because as we all like to say, KD can fit in any style. He's not like known as a toughness physicality player, but he can fit in any style. Now, what obviously for Houston, what's important for them is that they're getting someone like KD who they can go to, like giving up Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. Like that's why most of us felt like Houston made sense, because what they need is that go-to scorer on the wing. And KD can obviously do that for them. But I think it's going to be interesting because I don't think Houston is going to be or wants to be or should want to be some like high-powered offensive team. They'll be able to score better. And I mean, like, they were top 3 in the West this past year. And it's not like they had some dynamic offense. I mean, when it came to the playoffs, that's where they looked so limited, was just in their offensive capability, being able to manufacture points consistently. Now, the thing about their setup now is that KD is their best player. And I think what Houston should be trying to do now is continue to build the team around solid depth. Look at the 2 teams in the finals right now. We're about to talk about the finals in Game 7 tonight in a couple minutes, but that's part of the model that I think teams need to try to adapt, especially a team like where like you have KD, but like we're not in a position to be thinking of KD as leading this team, by himself to a championship. And again, no one does it by themselves, but like if KD's their best player and the only one who's done it and been there, they're going to be relying on him for, more than just like, that's why I advocated for like, Minnesota might be cool. I even thought San Antonio would be great, because I thought what might be best for KD is to play with another young upcoming star who is better than him right now or going to be better than him. Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama. Like I thought maybe that would be better for KD so he could really just focus on scoring and not so much be like and I'm not one to like question his leadership or anything like that. But I don't know if that's an ideal scenario for him to be the one veteran championship scorer. And look, I love that he's got defenders around him, a really good skilled big in Shangun. Like it's a good team. I think they're going to be a really good team. But if we're talking championship, they're going to have to rely on building out their depth and really anchoring their identity in what I think Ime Udoka wants to be, which is still a defensive team. Like, I think where this works and can make sense is that you have Houston, who has young, dynamic players, some pretty good two-way players, some skill players, but they're young and they have a coach who is defense oriented. Then you add one of the best scorers, one of the best wing players of all time, and that should work because you still need to score the ball. And that's where they were obviously limited in the playoffs. So I really like it for Houston to get a legit proven scorer like this. I like it for KD because it's a chance to play in a culture that I think is going to be good for him, that I think is not going to wear him down and rely on him too much. At least I think that's what Houston should be focused on I mean, I'm just having the understanding that their best player, this guy they just traded for, he is, 36 going on 37. He is past his prime, but he's still elite. You don't just ride him thinking that he's going to be the savior every night. You've got to empower, you've got to think depth. You've got to think depth, and you've got to have other players and your other young players empowered to be really good and big time and special in big moments. KD is going to take on the heavy load in a lot of those big moments when it comes to getting a bucket, scoring, and shot making. And that's great. But if they're going to be a real contender, it's the depth thing. It's what we're about to talk about with these two teams in the finals right now. You've got to have legit depth to be able to compete. And they're going to have a good starting five, but I don't want to get too wrapped up in the whole, can a team win a championship with KD as their best player? Because I think the answer is flat out yes, as long as you show me that that team is built in a certain way around him with other playmakers, other shooters, scorers, defenders. Like, we're talking about building out a roster now, a depth chart. So it's not all about KD. At least it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be looking to wear him down. God forbid he goes down and misses time, then you're right back to where you were. But I get it. I love it. I think this makes sense. I know people will still be complaining about sending picks and he's not going to get you over the hump and all that. I think this makes sense for both sides. Especially, I think I'm most confident in Ime Udoka being able to coach Kevin Durant and him being in that kind of culture that's still going to be defense oriented. And I think that's good for him, where he can really pick his spots and be who he is, who everyone knows he is when they need him to. And I think he's still proven he can do that. It's different than Phoenix. Like, I think this team just has a little more of that grit and culture to them, a little more defined roles, a coach who is like more no nonsense, who has, seen success, I think this is a good situation for both parties, for KD and for Houston. And we'll see what they continue to do with the roster to fill out, because I still think they need to focus on that and I don't think they're set right now. I think they're going to compete, but we'll see what else they can do. Probably nothing like too crazy, but just filling in with good players, maybe one or two more veterans. I know they re-signed Steven Adams, but this is going to be really interesting. I think this does make Houston better. But they still have to know what their culture is and figure out what their depth is going to be. All right. So speaking of depth, just a few quick things, just some thoughts on the NBA Finals. Game 7 is tonight. And I do have a feeling about what may go down tonight, but that's why I hate making picks. I kind of fell off on like making picks in playoffs and the finals and stuff, because it's like, you never know until you watch the first game, until you really see what the energy is, who's in rhythm. And as we know, I mean, things can change. Like people end up changing their picks. So I'm not big on picks, but I am big on feelings. And I have a feeling I've feelings have been changing throughout the series. But I did say something to my guy Scoop B on another session. In fact, when we kind of just previewed right before the finals and talked about the matchup between the Pacers and the Thunder, I brought this up as what I felt like was the most interesting kind of dynamic and storyline coming into this NBA Finals. And Indiana has this, I mean, they're beating the odds. They have this, they're clearly the Cinderella kind of underdog in the matchup, but it's also why I don't count them out, because they keep showing us that they can do these remarkable things. And Rick Carlisle, I think there are elements to it, but I mean, objectively speaking, it's hard not to say that this is kind of a lopsided finals with all that OKC has, even though they're still young. Like they look ready, but they're still young, and they're getting this like super team treatment. Like there's no way Indiana can even compete with these guys. So I that's what I felt like was the most interesting thing with this finals, was that people felt like it was lopsided. And based on the season OKC had, based on the fact that they have the MVP, they're like historically great defensively, all these things. And I even said in that clip, I'm like, it's hard not to say that it feels a little lopsided. But what I was also saying in that preview and what we talked about was like, we're still looking at two of the youngest teams in the league. And after seeing what Indiana did in the Eastern Conference playoffs against the Knicks, against Cleveland, against Milwaukee, especially against the Knicks, I mean, just the way Indiana has been rolling, they're in the finals for a reason. And I mean, we've seen finals that were, lopsided, or we kind of knew who was going to win. One team is clearly better than the other, but I didn't fully feel like that was the case coming in. I really didn't. I know what I said in the clip, like it seemed like it was a little lopsided, but honestly, I feel like people had that influence on me. I don't know if I ever really truly felt that or believed that, because again, Indiana had this. I even made the case that the basketball gods might be on the Indiana Pacers side. Like we've seen Indiana do things that are like just remarkable basketball wise. The whole thing of them not having like a true superstar or a player averaging over 20 points a game, like truly doing it by committee, like that style. And so this is the most fascinating, most interesting thing. This is the biggest part of this finals in terms of who's going to win, because, and this is what's going to make it most impressive to me if either team wins, because the more I watch OKC, the more I've said to myself, if OKC were to win this title, the most impressive part about it is that they will have done it with a style that most people have said couldn't win. And that's a heavy isolation style of play. The more I watch OKC, the more I see possessions where it's like, oh, one pass shot. Shea, come up, off ball screen. He's going right into shot. Like, I mean, very minimal ball movement, possessions, philosophy. And it's become a stark contrast between obviously what Indiana is doing. I saw a stat that in game 6, which Indiana obviously blew out OKC in that game by 30, held OKC to under 100 points, 91, which I thought OKC would be trying to do to Indiana with their defense, was test Indiana's offense and hold them under 100 points in at least one of these games. But Indiana ended up doing it to OKC. And more on that in a second in terms of Indiana's offense. But what's crazy is that in game 6, Indiana passed the ball 107 more times than OKC. They made 107 more passes than OKC in game 6. And it's not that surprising of a stat because, again, the contrast of styles. the more I have watched these two teams play against each other, and frankly, the more just watching OKC through the playoffs. And I watched them a good amount this year, but really like getting to watch them and what they do well and why they are who they are. Defensively, I mean, they can be so special. It's crazy. I've said before they have multiple defensive specialists. Most teams have like one Lou Dort or like one Alex Caruso, maybe a good solid defensive bit. They even their best players can play high level defense. I mean, that defense is crazy good. And again, we're going to talk about why Indiana is so impressive. Even if they don't win, Indiana has proved what they are offensively and how special they can be. And I got something on that. OKC overrated. I mean, I don't know if I would say they're overrated, but I think their style, I think it's just going to be really impressive if they can win a title and win this thing with their style being so heavy. SGA, ISO, Jalen Williams, pick and roll, go get a bucket. And what I think is most interesting to me about OKC with style is that they're still not, you're not going to label them a selfish team. This is different. Like the way SGA dominates as an MVP, as kind of a ball dominant player, as a scorer first, lead guard, hybrid guard, where he's different, where him and OKC are different than like the James Harden Rockets, right? Who, went to the conference finals, had a chance to get to the finals with their style. But I feel like the thing about Harden was that he was way more of like a point guard than an SGA, in that his assist numbers were way higher. Like Harden was about scoring and assisting. SGA is more on the scoring side than like high assist numbers. But it's so interesting how SGA style and OKC style of like, we're really focusing on one or two guys, and it's heavy ISO. It just looks different than like what I think James was so much dribble, tween. Like I think it was so much like dribbling ISO one-on-one, everyone stands around. And SGA is more of like burst, quickness, mid-range work, footwork, pivoting. Like his repertoire scoring wise is so I mean, it's so mid-range heavy. And once he gets into that in-between space, he's so crafty with different ways he can score and finish that I think it just looks different than like what James would do, when James would just be at the top of the key, tween, cross, tween, and look, it just felt like a little more of like a dribbling thing, where Shea, it's kind of like he just goes, he uses those strides and he kind of does it, I think, in less dribbles. But it's still interesting to me how OKC can have that style. And it speaks to what Brandon has told me, what Scoop B has told me when I've had him on the show, because he has experience covering OKC and being there. They have that college team atmosphere. It's really like no egos. They do their interviews together at the end of games all together. They don't let one guy just do it. They all stand there together. So as much as it is mostly about one guy, at least offensively in SGA, and now it's about two guys because Jalen Williams is doing what Jalen Williams is doing. So now it's really about those two guys. Even though it's so heavy there's not a selfish ego aura about the team. So it's a weird thing that I can't help but notice, where OKC, and I wouldn't even say they play selfish. It's not a selfish style of play. It's just that SGA is that good of a scorer right now. He's that good where he might need a screen, he might not need a screen, but like kind of give him his room and trust him to make plays. He kind of gets a little tunnel vision sometimes. Like once he goes, it's like, he's not kicking out, like, he's going to get a bucket. And I can relate to that. I know what that feels like, because it's like, once you get into the motion, it's like, okay, and he's clearly done so much work, SGA. He's done so much work on his skill set and his scoring, and just like getting to spots and having the feel for like, okay, once I get to this, I know I can rise up, or I know he just has he's clearly worked so much on that skill set and that feel of just getting by people, stopping on the dime, and having all kinds of different options for just getting to a bucket. So once he gets into that groove, once he gets into his move or his rhythm, like I just feel like when you watch him, it's like you see the confidence, you see that he's worked on this. Like when you're that good of a scorer, you earn tunnel vision because it gets to a point where it's like, I have worked on this. You guys see me do it in practice. I do it by myself in my own time. Once it comes game time, boom. No, like I'm going into this. I've done it too many times. But it's fascinating how OKC has been able to be this great. And frankly, it's because their defense is so elite. Like I think where they lack the ball movement and ball popping kind of offense that we see with Indiana, we've seen with Golden State, we've seen with we feel like championship teams kind of have to have at some level in terms of like ball movement. I feel like their lack of that, where they lack in that style of play on offense, they make up for in their defense. Because it's crazy to me. Like I see OKC's offense sometimes, and it's like one pass and shot. The first pass, it's Lou Dort 3. Like you don't see too much drive and kick, screen, rescreen. You don't see a whole lot of actions. And that's something that I think specifically kind of hurts Chet in a way. I think when you look at the series Chet is having, and I think he's got to have a really good and forceful game tonight. I think I've noticed that he'll get off to a strong start, but I think Chet just gets lost in the offense sometimes. Not like intentionally. And I'm not saying Chet is like a Draymond Green or like a Pascal or like some playmaking forward. I think he's going to keep getting better with that. But I just don't feel like he's involved in the offense. In fact, I don't think anyone feels that naturally involved in OKC's offense outside of SGA and Jalen Williams. Alex Caruso kind of finds his offense kind of on his own, I feel like. Obviously on cuts off the ball, sometimes he'll bring it up and he'll look to be aggressive. And even when that happens, sometimes I'll just see the person who brings it up, they just go and look to score. Like OKC's offense, I swear, it's like minimal passing, minimal ball movement. They're averaging 17 assists in the finals. Indiana's averaging 23. I mean, and again, it's not that they're selfish. It's just, I just think, I don't know. I think that's part of their system. I think it trickles down from their best player who's able to do that because he's the best scorer in the league this year. So he has the luxury of doing that. And I just think, Jalen Williams, his confidence has come on. So he has a little bit more of that freedom to do that. But I don't think Chet, and I'm not saying Chet should have that full freedom. I think he kind of finds his spots too in offensive rebounds and putbacks, catch and finishes. But I just think when you have guys that, and OKC has great depth, I'm always impressed with. They bring in Wiggins, they bring in Kenrich Williams, they bring in Isaiah Joe, they bring Cason Wallace. Like they are legitimately 10 to 12 deep of good players on both ends. All these guys are good. The risk you kind of run with depth, not just depth, because I'm about to get to Indiana. The way Indiana does their depth is everyone's involved. Everyone's involved. I saw the stat that Indiana is the first team in NBA history to have 8 players score over 200 points through the NBA playoffs. 8 players on Indiana have scored over 200 points in these playoffs. That's the first time it's ever happened. So OKC has had great depth that is worth marveling over and acknowledging. But OKC's depth, I just feel like when these guys come in, they have to like find their offense. You don't see as much of the system helping them create their offense. They kind of have to do it on their own. Indiana's depth and their offense is so equal opportunity. Everybody feels involved. So even if you're only taking, 8 to 12 shots, you feel so involved and empowered and there's not as much pressure because it's like everybody's doing a little bit of everything. So that's where it's going to be most impressive for Indiana if they win this. And here's what I said about Indiana potentially needing special offense, especially from their best players, if they were going to counteract OKC's defense in these finals. I predict that OKC might even want to challenge themselves to have one or two of these games hold Indiana under 100 points. And I think they have the ability to do it because, again, when the team is that good defensively, you need special offensively to counter it. And Hallie can be special. Pascal can be special. They have special in them, but we're talking about winning 4 games. We're talking about 4 games of special. And as much as Indiana can do it collectively against a team that good and that stout and that deep, you're going to need some special offensive play to counteract that. Yeah, and so I think where most of us I think where I think a lot of people underestimated Indiana in a series like in an NBA finals, and even in tonight's game 7, it's like we tend to think that we always say, like, especially in basketball, it's like the stars have to show up, the stars have to lead you, the stars have to perform, and you tend to think that you need star level, talent to win, at this level to really win the championship. And like I said in that clip, that they would need that Indiana would need special offense from Hallie and from Pascal. And the truth is, what's become just almost annoyingly true about the Pacers is that, and it's why I said, like, why I said that about OKC. I felt like OKC's defense was going to show. We were going to find out just how great this Indiana offense really is, if it even is great. Like, I felt like that's what we learned from Indiana in this series. Not necessarily like, is Tyrese Halliburton gonna be a superstar and take over? Is Pascal Siakam gonna? I mean, it's about everyone. Like, every single player on, you could do a whole thing on all 8 on those 8 guys for Indiana, each of them. Obi Toppin, Mathurin had a game with 27 off the bench. That was special. TJ McConnell has literally taken over games in the finals where OKC literally doesn't even know what to do with him. So Indiana has found ways to be special, and it's not through special individual play. What's become special about Indiana is that they have gotten this far. They have a legit chance to win the title by continuing to be who they are. Tyrese Halliburton hasn't had to start acting like he's a 30-point per game scorer. Pascal Siakam doesn't have to, he has to be aggressive, but he doesn't have to act like he's the alpha, the best guy. Like, everyone's got to be aggressive. Everyone's got to be unselfish. Everyone has to be bought in. And it's worked for them. Not only has it worked, it has become special. And it's a special collection of guys because, and this is part of my takeaway from this finals too. There's no such thing as the copycat league anymore. I mean, we all know we're in the age of parity in the NBA. This is going to be the 7th different champion in the last 7 years. It's the first time it's been at this rate in terms of a different champion every years, like in like decades. Like, it's never been this wide open before. And so I think that's where you can't, like, I think over the last few years, really since 2020 and the bubble, when the Lakers won it with LeBron and AD, I feel like it's become more of a big 2 league instead of big 3, where we see teams try to get 2 stars in depth as opposed to a big 3 and just filling out the roster. So I think that's become part of the copycat thing. Obviously, the 3-point era and everyone trying to shoot more threes and stuff. But, like, even when you think about the last few champions, you can't replicate that. You can't copycat that. There might be elements of it that you can try to take from, but there's too much talent across the league. It's too diverse. It's too unpredictable, where it's not as simple as just saying, all right, we're going to shoot a bunch of threes like Boston did last year. First of all, you need the personnel to do it. You can't just say, all right, we'll do that, and then we'll be the champions. No, it's not that simple. That was Boston last year. Year before was Denver. How are you going to copycat Jokic? How do you replicate that? Year before was Golden State, Steph. Everybody doesn't have a Steph. Year before that was Milwaukee, Giannis. Everybody, you can't copycat Giannis. Everyone does have a Giannis. So, and look at where we are now. 2 teams that are legitimately deep, but showing you 2 completely different styles of depth. One has the MVP, the scoring leader. He's just been that dominant and that good where he's leading his team and everyone else kind of falls into place happily and willingly. Defensive guys, Jalen Williams has become his running mate. Chet plays his role. Like they've all filled their roles around this, one guy, their MVP, their scoring champ, really the only guy like him on that team, with a bunch of other really good players. You can't replicate a Shea. You can't copycat what OKC has done, what Sam Presti has done with that roster. I've said it. If you want to talk about superstars, the two superstars in the NBA Finals are the Oklahoma City Thunder GM, Sam Presti, and the Indiana Pacers GM. Those two general managers are the superstars of this NBA Finals. And so the whole copycat thing, the whole copycat league thing is dead. Like, yeah, you're going to pick up little things. You're going to learn from like, okay, what are the trends? What are people doing? But look at what these teams just did. Built good, wholesome rosters, crazy depth. I mean, you need smart people who can put together rosters like this. This isn't just a style of play thing. You can't just replicate these styles of play and these rosters. You can say you're going to shoot more threes. You can say you're going to, play 10 guys regularly and try to play on your depth. But you can't replicate this. The league is going to be too different from year to year in different styles, what's going to be working, and there's going to be bits and pieces of what's been working over the years, but things are just changing at such a rapid pace. That copycat league thing is dead now, especially with these two teams that are playing right now. Because you're talking about, you can't replicate this level of unselfishness and ball movement that Indiana has. You can't. Not with the right kind of players, the right kind of coach, the right kind of buy-in. Like, you're not just replicating that. You can't just copycat that. You can't just copycat SGA without you can't copycat that. You're not going to have an individual player just start doing. I mean, Ant could have a better year, a bigger year next year. He could come back better. Luka could come back better. I mean, you could have guys like have that kind of big turnaround year like SGA has had over the last couple years, where SGA has really, cemented himself as a legit top 5, top 3 player in the league now. So we've seen that. We've seen Steph, from 2014 to 2016, the team and Steph, the Warriors exploded, and Steph, just like that, best player in the league, MVP, and overtook his peers, superseded his peers. So we see individual stars kind of take that leap every year, and we see teams take the leap. But in terms of play style and stuff, the copycat league thing is really dead. So like where are you going to find another TJ McConnell? You know what I mean? Like, you're not copycatting this. You can say you're going to try to build good depth. And that's probably the main thing I would say is going to be a takeaway, where we see teams, other franchises try to do, is like build a strong, egoless starting 5 where positions and roles are clearly defined, and build really good depth where you have guys that take pride in being part of that depth. So I think tonight in this game 7, my feeling is that, okay, so I think OKC naturally will have the home court advantage. I think just the energy of the building is going to fuel, especially their defense. I feel like we've seen them really lock in on defense, especially at home against Indiana. It's going to be so interesting to just see the flow. This is what I talk about with making picks with games and with series and stuff. Cause it's like, I want to see it first. I can't really know anything until I see the actual. I'm not going off of what's happened the last 6 games. Some of that comes into play, but game 7s, elimination games, can be weird. And I think we're going to get one of those weird games tonight. Like, a random guy could come off and hit 5 threes. One of their guys could go on an offensive rebounding tear and just dominate the offensive glass. There could be a foul discrepancy. Weird things can and will happen. And from that standpoint, in terms of weirdness, I think that will favor Indiana. if either team is going to have weird stuff happen and it benefit them and they capitalize and win this thing, I think it would be Indiana, because we've seen it. We've seen Aaron Nesmith hit 5 straight threes in that Eastern Conference Finals game 1 at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. 5 straight threes. They were down by 17 in the fourth quarter. Indiana comes back. And of course, the Pacers have had multiple like crazy comebacks through this whole playoff run. But we've seen Indiana do these kind of remarkable, almost weird things. Thomas Bryant hits a couple corner threes. TJ McConnell just takes over the game. Like, just things that you almost can't even explain. So if the game feels a little weird, I feel like that might favor Indiana. I just think OKC has to really use the energy of the crowd, because what I think Indiana and their style has done is show that they can wear out OKC. What I think is in OKC's favor is the fact that they did not play well in game 6. I do feel like when you have the team that just played that poorly the game before, and to the point where not to say it was a fluke, but just that like they know they didn't show up and play the way they were supposed to play. They're at home. It's game 7. I mean, both teams are going to be giving it. Anyone who's playing in that game is going to be balls to the wall, playing as hard as they ever have in their career. Like, everyone's going to be playing super hard. But I think OKC, coming off of a game in game 6 where they didn't play well and got embarrassed, got blown out, and they're back at home, all the energy is on them. I think they're going to put so much of their energy into their defense, into stopping Indiana. Maybe this will be the game where they try to hold Indiana under 100. If Indiana could do it to them, they've got to try to return that. I think OKC's defense, this is where they can show and prove that they are an all-time defense, because the way Indiana plays, they have proven to themselves, to OKC, and to all of us that they can wear down Oklahoma City. They can wear down that defense. They have found holes. They have been able to hit threes and hit shots. We know Indiana has to hit threes tonight. But honestly, it's going to be a weird game. It's going to be one of those weird games, I think. Definitely very physical. I get the feeling that Indiana can do this thing. I just think with everyone being confident and everyone being involved, it could be any combination of 1, 2, or 3 guys. It could be TJ McConnell and Mathurin. It could be Halliburton and Miles Turner. It could be Pascal and Nembhard. It could be any combination of 2 or 3 guys on Indiana that have the kind of game that you need to have in game 7 to help your team win. I just think, and I think OKC, if they win, it's because we're going to see an maybe all-time great performance from either SGA and Jalen, or one of the two. One of them has to be special at the very least. Both of them may have to be maybe even just all-time great individual offensive performances and defense, because what they do on defense matters for OKC's defense as well. But man, to think about which team is going to impose their will in this game with that kind of energy, I think Halliburton looking the way he did in game 6 is really encouraging for Indiana. Obviously, they had the calf injury storyline going into that game, but he looks fine now. Obviously, his pace and his movement is so big. Like, early on, I want to see what the movement is looking like. But that's the thing about Indiana. It's like, because everyone's involved, because they're so committed, and because they don't stop playing, it's been this kind of series. And it could be that kind of game where even if OKC jumps out to a 12-4 start or to a 10-2 start, and they look really strong and the crowd is hyped off in the first few minutes, just keep watching. We've all learned our lessons by now, who have underestimated Indiana, or who have felt like, I never felt like they were just not going to compete. Some people felt like they were just outmatched. People are like, oh, OKC in 5, Indiana, no way. I'm like, really? These are 2 young teams. I see how great OKC has looked. I see they look championship ready, but they're still young. I know they have the MVP. They look like they might have the best player in the league right now. They just look unstoppable offensively, defensively. But these are still 2 young teams. Neither of these teams, it's not like Golden State and Boston in 2022 where you're like, man, Steph, Clay, Draymond. Like Boston looks really good, but I don't know. Golden State, that experience, they've been here before. I know OKC has been like the greater team this season, historically great, even maybe. But from what we saw from both of these teams through the playoffs, I'm like, this is not that lopsided. Both of these teams are deep. They know who they are. They're capable. Indiana has the 3-point advantage way more over OKC, even though guys on OKC can hit shots. It'll be interesting. Like when I talk about the weirdness, like the weirdest thing for me that can happen for OKC, which can happen, so maybe it's not that weird, but like if Lou Dort hits 5 or 6 threes, if Wiggins comes in like he's done in one game in this series, hits 5 or 6 threes off the bench. I think that was the same game. Him and Caruso both had like 20 off the bench or something. I mean, if OKC is hitting threes, that is the scariest version of them, as we know. But Indiana knows that. Rick Carlisle knows that. They've had enough success against this team to know what works, what doesn't work, what they need to do better. I don't know, man. I have a feeling that Indiana is going to do what they've been doing, which is make this a game no matter what. I think OKC is going to come out with a lot of defensive intensity. I feel like they're really going to look to buckle down on the things they've noticed where they can clean things up in slowing down Indiana, not giving them as many of the looks that they like. And I think they've shown that there have been spurts where OKC has made Indiana look limited and challenged offensively, and then TJ McConnell comes in and just starts running wild. Let me just say quick as I finish up here on TJ McConnell. I think TJ McConnell, it's so interesting because he does what off the bench, like if you were to kind of put him and Caruso side by side, like they both do such great things for their teams. But it's crazy because McConnell does so much more off the dribble than like the things we were talking about this in our group chat, actually, in the last game. You would put McConnell in a category or tier with guys like Josh Hart, even Caruso, even Alex Caruso, like tough-minded, knows what their role is, plays hard on both ends, plays super hard, guys that just play super hard. Guys that play really hard usually aren't doing the things like offensively that TJ McConnell does. Like he's a really unique kind of player to figure out. And it's why like there's so many layers to Indiana, and the layer of TJ McConnell, it might be the most unpredictable layer of it. Cause it's like, honestly, when I see guys like Cason Wallace and, Wiggins and different guys who are more athletic than TJ McConnell, longer, bigger, quicker, like more athletic. And I see McConnell getting by them, getting to that right hand pull up, which he is so good at, going off the right hand to that rise up pull. When I see him going at these guys, it's kind of like the guy that you're guarding at LA Fitness or something, or in the park, where it's like you respect him because he's been making plays and he's kind of quick. You can tell he can play, but it's like McConnell will drive at guys and you'll see them like kind of, you'll play the like move back and just, all right, just let him drive. I'll block it or something. And he'll get in and then he'll hit you with the reverse, or he'll up fake you. And he just totally messes you up. It's too unpredictable. You can't predict. And then he does what he does so hard. He goes so hard, so fast with the dribble. He goes full speed. You've got to match his intensity. So I just think it's crazy how McConnell, he's even different than Halliburton. I mean, they had all these conversations about should they let McConnell run the show if Halliburton can't go in Game 6 with that calf injury. I mean, he's just been that good. So people were literally questioning, like, man, should you just let TJ run for more minutes? But that's where Rick Carlisle to me is so impressive, because like with his rotations, when he puts certain, like when does he knows when to put Tony Bradley in. He knows the right time to go with Mathurin and McConnell. Like his timing with his substitutions has been so good. Another just last quick thing I'll say too. Andrew Nembhard has worn out SGA. Not to the point where he hasn't been really good, because he obviously has, but man, that's the thing with SGA too. He'll get those shots off. That's what I was talking about earlier with his tunnel vision and obviously his high level ability as a scorer that he's earned the right to take those shots. But man, he'll take, 25 plus shots to get his 30. He'll unload the clip. And I know that's what a lot of people appreciate about him. Stark contrast from the lead guard on the other side, Halliburton, who people have said needs to be more aggressive, should try to take more shots. The whole record of Indiana when he scores at least 20 and gets 10 assists. It's like he should be more aggressive. He's not a scorer like SGA is, but he can score. And at times he obviously needs to score for Indiana to be a real threat offensively. But he doesn't go outside of himself. Like, he's not going to force that issue. SGA is the type, he has earned the right to force the issue when the time comes, because he can force the issue and still get a bucket. But I think Nembhard has made this really a tough series for SGA. I mean, they had to change up their strategy when they give SGA rest early in the game so he can be fresh later in the game, because one, defending Indiana's actions, the way they play offense is tiring to defend, like a San Antonio or Golden State. It's tiring to defend that much passing and ball movement. And then what SGA has to do offensively to lead the scoring load while being guarded by Nembhard, who is his childhood friend and knows him, is not intimidated by him, and knows his stuff. And Nembhard is tough, quick, physical. Like, he is a lot of times he is right in front of Shea. Shea is not losing him or getting him off of him a lot of times. Like, man, he has been wearing down SGA. So that's something to watch for tonight too, because I feel like that's been a really understated advantage for Indiana, where Nembhard has just been all over SGA and making him uncomfortable at times and wearing him down. Times when you see SGA hands on his knees, like, that's not just because it's the finals. It's because Nembhard is making him work. He has been making him work. So I can't wait to see how this game starts. Obviously, how it finishes is most important, but I can't wait to see how things shift. I do think this is going to be one of those weird games, elimination games and game sevens. Anything can happen. I can't wait to see it. The game is tonight. If you're watching on the playback, appreciate you. We'll know by the time you're watching this, if you're watching this whole video through, who the champion is. But appreciate you for watching. This is the Basketball Society podcast. By the time you see this, you may have watched this, we may know who our champion is. The game is coming up tonight in about 6 or 7 hours. So this is the Basketball Society podcast. Thanks for watching, and stay subscribed, stay tapped in with the channel for more live streams, more episodes of this show, and even more basketball content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.